You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Howdy, everyone. Good day. Good day. Good day. I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Sports Medicine with the Robs. And we are going to be talking about UFC 252's injuries. We have a couple on the docket. Two we're really going to talk about. Others we're going to touch on. I think the two everybody expects us to talk about is Sean O'Malley's ankle injury and the Daniel Cormier torn cornea. That's hard to say. Try saying that 5 times fast, Rob. Cormier torn cornea. Cormier torn cornea. But I feel like we're just gonna kind of let's start with the other fighters' injuries first, and then we'll get to the two big ones. We're gonna start with the Cormier one because I feel like that's gonna be pretty much open and shut, like what to do. I think where we're gonna have some discussion is the Sean O'Malley ankle foot undisclosed injury, and I think that's where we're gonna have a little bit of fun. Is kind of online diagnosing, which is not really. We don't recommend that, but whole besides the point. All right, so Rob's gonna go through all the other injuries that kind of happen, and most of them are fairly par for the course. And I guarantee you, every single person who leaves that octagon has a concussion. But whole another. It's a whole nother podcast that we're not. Anyway, go ahead, Rob. Take it away.
Another podcast. Yeah, another podcast for that one. So some of the more straightforward, open shut ones that'll come and go throughout the UFC ones. We got a bunch of guys that have cuts that need to be healed. So Kai Kamaka, Jim Miller, Herbert Burns, Daniel Pineda, Tony Kelly, and Junior Dos Santos are all out for various cuts that need to be healed, and then they'll be cleared after that. So nothing big there. They just need to have the cuts healed, obviously. TJ Brown is out until he had a orbital fracture in his fight. He's out until that is healed and cleared, obviously. So kind of along the same lines as the cut guys. It's pretty standard operating procedures.
Quite literally
there.
Open and shut.
Literally, yes. Heavyweight champ, baddest man on the planet right now, Stipe Miocic. He needs to be cleared by a retinal specialist on his left eye. And this was kind of an ongoing injury. He had issues with this after his last fight last year with Daniel Cormier in their second fight, where he won back the heavyweight title. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. I'm not too concerned about this. There was really no big issues with him last Saturday night, so not too concerned with it. I think it's going to be his par for the course for the rest of his career until he hangs up the gloves as well. So then that brings us to his opponent, Daniel Cormier, who suffered a torn cornea in the third round on his left eye as well.
A lot of eye poke, a lot of and I don't fully blame the fighters either. If you look at the build of those gloves, they're just not. But here's they need to make sure the gloves are more either natural as a closed fist for the gloves, or at least have more of a curvature in them. Instead of having to fight to close your fist, they should have to fight to open the palm, which you could argue makes an advantage with grappling, but that's besides the point. If it gets rid of, if it helps eliminate or reduce eye pokes, I think that's kind of the important part, because broken bones, I mean, for all intents and purposes, will heal pretty well. Eyes, on the other hand, they're tricky. They're not. I mean, they're definitely out of our realm of super specialty. As soon as I see an issue with an eye, guess what? They're going to see an ophthalmologist or optometrist. They're seeing their eye doctor, because that's not typically something we. I mean, it's obviously something we have to triage, but it's not something that we're going to be treating.
Right. Unless you need a piece of turf rinsed out of your eye. That's fine. Right. I'll rinse it out, have fun, go play. But if it's anything more serious than that, other than, oh, hey, I just got poked in the eye, I got to blink it out a little bit. Yeah, you need to go see someone. So with the DC one, though, from everything that I'm reading, he's not going to need immediate surgery. The docs weren't too terribly concerned with it Saturday night or Sunday morning whenever he got it checked out. However, surgery has not been ruled out at this time. He's going to kind of follow up with the docs and see how it's progressing. If it's progressing well, then they'll most likely not try surgery. If there's something going on that is outside of the norm, they'll look at surgery as an option. I think in his case, this is kind of not obviously we don't want I don't want him, and I'm sure you don't want him, and I don't think anybody wants him to lose his eyesight. But I think in this instance, he retired Saturday night, so it's almost kind of a best timing for him for something like this to occur, because it's not like best timing.
No, retired.
Oh no, I think he's done. I 100% think he's done.
Yeah, so was Brett Favre. Besides the point, continue.
But so I think this is kind of best timing for him, because it's like he doesn't have to worry about, hey, when am I coming back to have another fight so I can feed my family and everything like that.
Yeah.
He's got cushy spots with the UFC in there, his podcast and ESPN show. You know, he's good on that terms, and so I think this is kind of best instance scenario for this to occur.
Best timing for it, right?
Yeah, right. Best timing, yeah.
Like the best time for I mean, it's awful to say, but like if you have a senior, right, they're not really looking at going to college and stuff like that. Best game for them to get hurt, they're the last one.
Yeah,
like
hey man, you got nothing left to miss out on now. You got nothing left to lose.
I mean, obviously you care. You're gonna treat it because better, still the same, because you care about the quality of life afterwards. And like,
correct.
I mean, I haven't heard of any blindness or anything like that. I'm sure that would have been a bigger story if he was absolutely blind after the fight. But
right.
But you know, it's always interesting to see those. And quite frankly, like timeline for me, I know Rob wanted to talk about timelines of like recovery for stuff like that, but like recovery for eye stuff, I have that's out of my I mean, I know I'm already referring, but like I can tell you, you know, most bones 6 to 8 weeks depending on the bone, stuff like that. Like ankle, and you're gonna have some lingering hamstring issues with hamstring injuries, but typically you can get them back in like 4 weeks is conservative for stuff like that, depending on, you know, stuff like that. Eyes, I have no idea, right? Especially torn cornea that might need surgery. Like I'm sure for almost any athlete, it's gonna be a season ender, right? Like if you're talking like traditional sports, like NBA, MLB, stuff like that, like there's not a lot of sports out there where you don't need both your eyes for the depth perception, and you're not running wide receivers not running routes with an eye patch out there. You know what I'm saying? Like it's although if anybody could do it, I feel like Randy Moss could come back and still with one eye and still be able to drop 100 yards a game minimum on people.
Either him or Ocho Cinco there.
Right. Yeah. Larry Fitzgerald.
Dude, 8.5's routes when he was running routes in his prime was good Lord.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see. If they actually come out. Like, you know, Daniel Cormier has you're right. You mentioned he has a podcast. He has like there's at some point he's gonna divulge it, right? Like there's no way. He's not one of those like I'm keeping everything to myself kind of guy. And especially like look at the content business, they're fairly open about their injuries and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the progression is. I don't think this is going to be one of those that kind of gets swept under the rug and you don't hear about. I feel like you're going to hopefully hear within the next, you know, few weeks. Once he's feeling better and because that happened. This is Friday and this happened 6 days ago. So 7 days ago. I don't know how math works.
7 days. It's Saturday.
I don't know how math works. It's fine. It is Saturday, and we usually record these on a Friday, and it's not a Friday. So like I'm all thrown out of cattywampus right now. But
right, but yeah, I definitely think we'll hear something from DC. He's pretty open on his social media too, Instagram, Facebook, all that. He's really open with his fans of like, hey, this is what's going on, that kind of thing. So I do expect to hear something from it, but like you said, timetable on this is kind of like that's kind of for the specialists to decide.
This is always one of those things like I tell my athletes, even like the seniors who are like, just put me back in, it's my last game, right? Because there's the flip side of yes, it's your last game, it's the perfect time to get hurt, but like it's also your last game. Like yes, it's your last game and you really have nothing to risk in the future besides, you know, your quality of life in the future, right? Like so this is kind of something you're hoping like doesn't lead to, heaven forbid, like blurred vision or whatever. Because heaven for or the floaties, you know what I'm talking about, like
Yes.
for lack of a better term. But you know, it's this is one of those discussions you kind of have to show your athletes, right? It's like, yes, this was his last fight, depending on who you talk to. But you know, this could have lasting implications, right? Like even if, you know, he's set, he has his podcast, you're right, he stuff like that, not stuff he necessarily needs both his eyes for, but like, I don't know about you, Rob, but I like both my eyes. I like being able to, like, I like having, you know, I mean, I do wear glasses on occasion for an astigmatism, but like for all intents and purposes, I have great eyesight, right? Like my depth perception is not bad. Like it's one of those things that's a very real risk for, you know, your seniors, your athletes who don't want to necessarily go back to sport, stuff like that, or your college who aren't going to pros, stuff like that. So it's a very real risk that can happen. And I'm be interested to see if when he does eventually come out of retirement to fight again, to make this a best out of 5 with Stipe.
I mean, I don't know about that. I'm pretty set at the trilogy. I think we got our answers.
Again, another podcast. You know, this could have implications on his future fights. Like, even look at Stipe, right? Like, re-injuring his eye. Now, that, granted, that's from eye poke, and that could have happened if he hadn't hurt his eye before. But I mean, just like an ACL tear, just like any injury you have, when you injure an area, you're more predisposed. Holy guacamole! You're more predisposed to getting re-injured in the same area, right? So, like, you know, he might not have had this issue with the eye poke that happened on Saturday. Yeah. On from that, now we get to the fun one. Now we get to the one where we get to speculate a little bit. Sean O'Malley. All right. So if you haven't watched it yet, go back and watch the Sean O'Malley fight, right? Like, you don't even need to watch the fight. There's videos out there that show just the straight up injury. Like, I'm looking at one right now. And so for those who don't know, he injured his right foot fighting. He lost the fight because of it. He was undefeated before that, correct?
Correct. He was 12-0 going into the fight.
It was non-contact, so it wasn't like he got kicked there. The mechanism looks like stereotypical. Like, when I look at this, it looks like a high ankle sprain, right? Like your stereotypical hyperflexion with rotary aspects. Rob in the pre-show was discussing, and I think he definitely has a valid point. Now, Rob comes from a line of athletic trainers, aka him and his dad. So, like, if you ever want an experience, go watch a sporting event with them, because they'll go back and forth about stuff all the time. Like, it doesn't matter what. Like, me, I'm perfectly fine, like, shutting off the ATC in me when I'm watching sports, right? Like, them, it's like, he grew up doing this, so, like, it's just kind of second nature. But he brings up a good point. The way he lands on it, it looks like there might be a distal fibular fracture too. Now, I don't have X-ray vision, so we can't tell for sure. UFC has not disclosed the injury yet, but it doesn't look good.
Now, I can
go ahead.
I can say that they did rule out fractures. He did get X-rays done, and I think it was either in an interview or his own social media post. He said X-rays, they said, were clean.
Okay.
They're waiting to do an MRI for the swelling to go down, because the area is obviously swelled up. And they weren't going to do the MRI without doing the X-ray first, just because that's how it works. And in that instance, I think they were kind of taking the same aspect of, you know, let's look and make sure there's nothing fractured in there, make sure everything is structurally sound, and then we'll worry about everything else going on.
Yep.
Which honestly, even in the fight itself, even before we saw the replay, myself and my dad, we were watching the fight together, and we both kind of not directly seeing exactly how he stepped and the excessive plantar flexion with the rotary aspect. Almost looked like he could have blown out his knee just the way he was kind of gingerly moving. Because a lot of the times he was gingerly moving and losing his stepping, he was going side to side laterally. And typically with that, it's, it
does look like there is a bit of valgus force on there too. So like,
right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, at that point, it was like, okay, we were thinking, oh, he blew out his ACL just because of that rotary aspect of it too. Seeing the replay, it was like, ooh. And then at the end of the fight, seeing where he lunged up to hold onto his body. He didn't hold onto his knee. So okay, his knee might not be the most damaged portion on him right now. He started holding down towards his ankle, watched the replay, and I was like, ooh, could be a fracture there.
Yeah.
X-rays come back. X-rays are clean. So now it's what's going on in there. Like you said, very well could be a high ankle sprain. That's definitely.
Honestly, that looks like every textbook I've ever read about a high ankle sprain. Every time my instructors instructed me about a high ankle sprain when I was in college, like, even if it's not, show your athletics training students this video and be like, that's the mechanism right there, right? Like, even if it's something different, like that's still the yes,
the most
correct.
That's still the most common mechanism, and that's going to be as close to textbook as you can get without it being in black and white on a page.
Right.
So,
I mean, you could also I could see some arguments for possible tarsal fractures, stuff like that. Just because of the way his foot's planted in the ground, toes bent. Yep. Obviously, we're about a little maybe some dislocation, possible Jones. But like, to me, just because of the forces driving outward, the rotation you see him go into, the plantar flexion, like, if this comes back and it's not a high ankle sprain, like, I'm gonna hang up my AT credentials, because like that's yeah. So going on from that, but yeah, go ahead.
So I was on top of the high ankle sprain aspect of it. I was also thinking could be something going on, like a grade 2 going into grade 3 sprain of those lateral ligaments as well.
Yeah,
because then that's also going to give you that
even
instability.
Then it's usually not, the high ankle sprain is usually not a isolated injury, right? You're usually having some ligamentous issues, fibular calcaneal issues too with it. Ow.
Yes.
Ow. Yeah, I know. That hurts me looking at it, and I see stuff like that all the time. But let's talk timelines, right? Like, timelines for high ankle sprain. You always hear like your lateral ankle sprains, 3 weeks depending on the grade, 2 weeks depending on the grade. Now, bad grade 2, you're probably looking at like a month, maybe longer. Grade 3, you're looking at like season ending. But like, high ankle sprain is always one of those ones. And for those who don't know, a high ankle sprain is basically a tear in the mortise between the tibia and fibula. The problem with it is that the talus when you step, keeps pushing up into that mortise and keeps tearing apart the osseous membrane between the two bones. So every time you step, it's tearing, or maybe not necessarily tearing, but like not letting it approximate, not letting it heal.
It's stretching it more than it should.
Correct.
To be sitting normal. And for some of you that may not know, the osseous membrane that Rob's talking about, essentially think about kind of like a spider webbing type design material, if you will, just kind of covering in between the two, your tibia and your fibula, to hold the bones together so they don't kind of float apart from it.
Yep, you have that
from each other.
You have that in your leg, so your tibia and fibula. You also have that for your ulnar and humerus. It's I mean, you look at the leg and look at the arm, they're set up basically the same. Some minor details with the elbow versus the knee, but that's a whole. Again, that's for your textbooks. I'm hoping somebody realizes this by now. But and that's the reason why you always hear like, why is a high ankle sprain worse? That's why. Like it's because it doesn't actually have a chance to heal. Low ankle sprains have a chance to heal. You can immobilize it, right? It's easier to immobilize. It's easier to tape down. It's easier to kind of let the structures relay down. Here, it's you put weight on it. It's driving that talus right up into the tibia and fibula, aka the ankle mortise, and just constantly separating it. And honestly, the only way to like is time or like bed rest. And ain't nobody got time for bed rest for an ankle sprain. You know what I'm saying? Like people got lives to live. Now he does have some time between his next fight. He can heal up. He gets to choose when he fights next, basically. Because that's all fighters, which is that's great. Like honestly, getting to choose when you want to fight, like that's again not the right not different podcast. But it hurts every step you take. It hurts. This could be a lingering issue for your athletes months down the line, even when they're back to like running and back to they're cleared by their doctor to go stuff and everything. They could still end up having some issues, and it also leaves the distal and proximal structures at risk because it hurts.
Yeah, and so this actually Sean O'Malley has actually injured this similar area in a previous fight. He missed. I want to say it was about a year or so of fighting for an injury in the same area. So that was kind of a concern. Once this occurred, is it the same injury?
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to be, an injury that he had previously that he now has re-injured? Is he going to re-injure the same injury again? From everything that I'm seeing, it's not the same injury, but it's the same area. So it's going to be one of those, is he going to re-injure this area
Mm-hmm.
again, which opens you up to a whole kind of realm of just possibilities, even just for an area as small as the leg and ankle area.
And that's so weird to see a UFC fighter who's, they have great control over their feet, right? Their foot placement is one of the most important things. It's not like see a non-contact with this, right? It's not like a football player who's having to deal with the offensive lineman pushing on them and stuff like that, where anything can happen, right? It's hard to imagine these fighters that basically they should know where their feet are at all times slip like this.
Right. So one of the things that does factor into this as well, the guy that he was fighting was his name's Chito Vera. He did land some pretty good round kicks to the thigh and the calf area, targeting where that peroneal will run, which can cause that drop foot, which he obviously showcased for everybody right there with the plantar flexion and inversion. So it's one of those was it like a misstep more of that he just kind of he miscalculated in his head, and therefore all the nervous system signals just weren't in the right place for him to take that step? Or was it more of those kicks really did start to shut that nerve down, so there was no signal to be sent, and so when he went to step, signal went to foot.
He might not have been feeling his foot, right? It could have been numb by that point, right? Like if you cook a couple good kicks, it's basically the same as having a stinger or a burner, right? Like it's the elongation, just the shock of the nerve causes that paresthesia distally, and you end up. I could see a justification for that.
And honestly, I've had both with my martial arts background. I've had both stingers in my arms, and I've had the essentially dead leg from the common peroneal kicks. Mm-hmm. I'd much rather have a stinger in my arm than a dead leg from those things. It's just I'm okay with letting this arm
Hang there.
just kind of hang there while I fend off with
Right.
this arm for a little bit. I'm not okay with trying to move around and dodge you with only one leg.
Right.
Something about a one-legged man with a butt kicking contest. Most times that doesn't end up in your favor, though.
On that note, what do you guys think? Ow. Like, that's all I gotta say right now is ow. I think timeline, right? Like, we're probably thinking 2 to 3 months before he's like training full blow again. Even considering going
at least
at a minimum 2 to 3 months. I mean, from the sounds of it, he doesn't have to wait for a bone to heal, but like he might have an injured nerve, and then that high ankle sprain. It's probably better for him to just kind of take it easy, do some upper body cardio, hit the UBE and call it a day. You know what I'm saying? But what do you guys think? If you liked it, make sure to subscribe, like. I don't know where the buttons are anymore on this YouTube thing and podcast thing. Just you know where the button is. You found us. Hit it. Thank you. We appreciate it. I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this was Sports Medicine with the Robs. Have a wonderful day.